The one with the baby shower is such a great episode of Friends, and I feel like I've said this a lot with season 8, but it might be one of my favourite episodes. This is the 20th episode of the 8th season. This is directed by Kevin Bright, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. There are 2 parts to the narrative, so I'll talk about each of them in turn, and then they tie together really nicely at the end with a very awkward but rather funny scene. So I'll talk about Joey first, and then Rachel in the baby shower. Joey is auditioning for the host of a new TV game show called Bamboozled. And he asks Chandler and Ross to be his contestants so he can practice. I love his game show voice. I think it's pretty brilliant. And we get to find out about the game, and very quickly we realise it's very bizarre. We have the Wicked Wango card and the Wheel of Mayhem, and it just sounds confusing and chaotic, but Ross is loving it. Chandler could not care less. He thinks it's ridiculous. I love the contrast in their approaches. Really, really funny. Really enjoyed the questions, the various aspects of the game show. It was definitely not something I'd watch in real life. I'm not a huge fan of game shows anyway. Quiz shows, trivia shows, I don't mind, but this kind of game show, where there are weird, wacky bits to it, not for me. But within the episode, really thoroughly enjoyed it. And I thought Joey did a great job. I learned a few things, and it took me quite a number of years to learn something else, because as we learn, triskaidekaphobia is the fear of the number 13. 13 is my lucky number, so I definitely don't have triskaidekaphobia. But I, for the longest time, had no idea what Triscuits were. Probably until I was an adult and suddenly decided to Google it. Obviously, when I was first watching this at the beginning of the century, I wasn't really, we didn't have internet right at our fingertips the way we do now. So it took me a long time to actually get round to Googling it and realising what Triscuits are. So I learned a few things there. And things turn around when Chandler gets the card that steals all of Ross's points, and then suddenly Chandler's really enthusiastic. And what I love about this is, while Ross was initially shocked and annoyed, he still got into the spirit of the game, and I love that. It was so beautiful to see. It was so fun. He does the hopping bonus where he has to hop and answer questions, but he failed because he forgot to switch legs between questions. It is ridiculous. And there's also an interesting bit of trivia here, where one of the questions Ross is asked during the hopping bonus, who was the UK's longest reigning monarch? And he answered correctly. At the time, it was Queen Victoria. But since this episode aired, Queen Elizabeth II took on that title of the UK's longest reigning monarch. So I just thought that was quite interesting. And at the end of the game, Ross goes through to the other apartment and declares that, "I just bamboozled Chandler," which I love. And then we'll come back to bamboozled at the very, very end. The rest of the episode, of course, focuses on Rachel's baby shower, and even though they sent out the invitations a month ago, they kind of forgot to invite Rachel's mother. So Monica has to phone her and invite her, and it's a really great conversation. I love how it went. Monica clearly didn't love it, but it was a lot of fun, and I rather enjoyed it. And her mother does arrive, thankfully, even though it's last minute, so no real harm done. And Phoebe said something that I thought was really, really interesting. Monica is panicking that Mrs. Greene is annoyed at her still, and Phoebe pointed out that they've apologised to her twice. So why bother worrying that she's still mad at her? Monica has done all she can do to make amends. So why worry about it if she's not forgiving her? And I thought that was pretty good. As long as you've done everything you can to rectify the situation, that's it. There's no point in worrying about it. And I thought that was wise. Not that I would take that advice. I feel like most people would still worry, but I thought Phoebe had some words of wisdom. And Monica, as well, didn't take that advice, because she spends the rest of the episode trying to suck up to Mrs. Greene, which was rather good fun. And then, Mrs. Greene then decides that she'll come and live with Rachel for 8 weeks. That's her gift, and obviously initially Rachel's not thrilled about this, and as she said, "I'm not going to vacuum up my baby." Apparently Rachel vacuumed up her hamster when she was a child. Rachel doesn't want her mother to stay with her, but then it's time for the presents, and it turns out that Rachel doesn't really know what half the stuff is, which is a little bit awkward, because presumably she's been to some parenting classes, some baby classes, she's been reading books. So to not identify a breast pump was a little bit of a concern. Not identifying a diaper genie maybe is not so much of an issue. But yeah, I feel like Rachel could do with some last minute lessons, and she agrees to let her mother stay with her. In fact, she practically begs her mother to never leave. And she says to Ross that her mother had just given them the greatest gift of all time, to which Ross responds, a Play-Doh barber shop? Ross, go and buy your own Play-Doh barber shop if you want one. No, of course, she's talking about Mrs. Greene staying with them, and Ross, of course, is not very happy with this. And he basically tells Mrs. Greene that he's been a father. He knows how to look after a child. He wants to be there for this baby. And of course, he can help Rachel as well. It's not like she hasn't got time to learn the basics. We're not completely there yet. And I actually think Mrs. Greene responded to this in a way that was quite admirable. And she said to him, you're going to make a great father. And he said to her, you're going to be a wonderful grandmother. And it was a really emotional moment. And I rather enjoyed it. And then we end the baby shower with Mrs. Greene leaving, of course. And Phoebe tells Monica that at this point, Mrs. Greene's just being spiteful. Because Monica has apologised. And to not accept the apology when it's very clear Monica meant it. She's not just saying sorry to keep the peace. It's so clear that she feels terrible. Mrs. Greene should have accepted that apology. And I say that as somebody who doesn't agree with just automatically accepting somebody's apology. I feel like they have to mean it. I feel like Monica did mean it. And Phoebe tells her to stand up for herself. So they do. Phoebe and Monica go out into the hallway, and Monica really stands up for herself and says all of these things to Mrs. Greene, and then calls her an old lady, which is probably not how the conversation should have went. And then Monica goes back inside and shuts the door on her, and I wish that's where they left it. Because Phoebe goes to get Monica a drink, and Monica turns around, opens the door, and runs off to apologise to Mrs. Greene, and then falls down the stairs. And I kind of feel like, I don't like that. I don't hate it, it's not the worst thing to have ever happened, but I just think it would have been more powerful if they just left it with the door closed. And Monica had said she couldn't feel her legs. It's clear that even though she did something out of character, she was still responding internally in a way that's very Monica. She was still very worried and paranoid and worried, scared that she'd upset Mrs. Greene again. So it would have still been in keeping with her character, but it would have made the message more powerful. So I don't love that they did that, but as I said, it's not the worst thing in the world. And then at the very end, we tie together all of the narratives where, actually also Joey got the audition. He went to the audition and they scrapped all of the wacky elements of the game, but there are going to be women in bikinis holding up things, so Joey's happy to audition anyway. And then at the very, very end, Ross is playing Bamboozled with Rachel, and I thought this was a good idea initially. Learning about how to parent a baby into a trivia game. Rachel was really on board with it. She was getting most of the answers right. It was going really well. She got it wrong. And Ross said, you've been bamboozled. You're going to be a terrible mother, which is just Rachel's face said it all. It's not exactly the way things should have gone. But in general, I liked the idea. So that was a fun way to tie everything together. It's a really fabulous episode. It's funny. It's meaningful. There are some beautiful moments. Personal highlights would be the entirety of Bamboozled. Mrs. Greene saying that Ross is going to be a wonderful father. I thought that was a great father. I thought that was a really, really moving moment and showed us a different side to her character as well, because in this episode she'd been quite controlling and judgmental and bitter. And then we get to see her being quite pleasant, and it was really, really nice. And I will say, when she was saying that Rachel needed help, she wasn't really criticising Rachel. She was more so just saying, look, these are gaps in your knowledge, let me stay with you and help you, rather than let me come and control everything. Even though I feel like if she did say, she probably would control everything. But I don't think she was being nasty or putting Rachel down when she was pointing out that Rachel needed help. So we do get to see different sides of her here, which I rather liked. And in general, needless to say, it's just a fabulous episode of Friends. I think the one with the baby shower, all things considered, is pretty perfect.